Hello and welcome to Fintech Insider News on Air. It's our weekly live show, and think of this as a podcast you can jump in on at any time. If you want to send any questions, I'll just say hi. Be sure to reach out on Twitter or fintechinsidernews.com. We're about to head into London Fintech Week, and David and I were having some chats this morning. I think it was on the couch at a flat.
Yeah, randomly sat on a couch in a flat this morning, which was kind of weird, but we thought it was very interesting. We thought we'd give you a go at it, right?
Yeah, so I think it was the fact that I was looking through an agenda for Innovate Finance Global Summit, and I saw that like a lot of the people speaking were MPs. It was kind of that vibe. But we kind of got onto like, what is London Fintech Week for? What are conferences for? It feels like the format's changing a little bit, maybe, and the goals have changed.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've had a little bit of a moan on Twitter a couple of times before about this one. That I think the element of conference and the conference going is kind of dying a little bit. I think the format's becoming a little bit stale, and I think particularly where you're in a situation where you're seeing similar people talk about similar things. I think there was a period last year where I think I threatened to sort of take somebody's life if I saw that. Airbnb, the Uber of, the taxi firm with no taxis, the Airbnb, the hotel firm with no rooms. It was kind of like became a meme type thing. So I think definitely there's a need more broadly, really, to be in a situation where conferences are being really, really rethought. If I think about the ones that I particularly have enjoyed over the last kind of year, then they've always got a little bit of a difference to them. How do you really sort of bring together that community? Because, if it's not about really the uniqueness of what's being said, and arguably, you kind of find the stuff that you really want to hear about are the things that people can't stand up and talk about in front of 5,000 people on a stage.
Yeah.
And the most interesting stuff happens in the bar, really.
Yeah, often the way. I mean, that was the genesis of the podcast, really, is like you'd enjoy what somebody said when they weren't on stage, or they're better right before you turn the microphone on. It's kind of consistent that's the best stuff, and it's like how do you bring that authenticity to it rather than this kind of staged feel to it. It was Ajit Tripathi, who is over at Consensus now, used to be PwC, said earlier, sort of goes to the conferences a lot for the people more so than for the speakers. And I know there'll be a lot of conferences next week and where you can do that. Like they do have the advantage of putting a lot of smart people in a room. But I always liked the FT Live by the Financial Times. They did sort of more of a festival vibe, and they got the speakers they got were people that you'd fall over to go see.
Yeah.
That would not from inside the bubble. They were
Me and
different.
you went to that last year, actually, didn't we? And I remember like you say, the quality of the speakers there were phenomenal. There was a real mix of sort of industry people, journalists in various different guises and various different industries, and actually just good fun as well. I think the you kind of have this. There's like a sort of a trope about conferences being a bit of a jolly for people on the client side of things, and I guess there's an interesting difference here between what somebody in a bank would want from a conference as opposed to somebody in the sort of fintech side of things. I think the ones that I guess that you sort of start to see those different divides is where you end up with consultancies and sellers and suppliers type thing, using it as a little bit of a piranhas smelling sort of blood in the water, and you get that weird sort of speed dating feel about really just having a bunch of stuff sort of thrown in your face. But there are ones that stand out though. Like I've always been really impressed with Money 2020, and I know that's going on out in Singapore now. I think they strike quite a good balance between the like big name speakers. Jack Dorsey was there last year, wasn't he? With a mix of actually that interaction as well. So exactly like you said before, some of the best conversations were with somebody at the bar having a pint, and a more broad, more open conversation. Sometimes just because a bunch of other people aren't listening to it. So.
And I think it's there's some things that can be done to make things more engaging, right? I mean, the sort of when you think about panel, what is it like when you're going to give a talk or go to a panel that you're looking to try and get across? Because for me, it's really about like, how can I make this something I'd want to listen to rather than like shaking the bit of paper and asking all the questions.
Yeah. I guess there's a continual trend, though, to a certain degree about like, we always are in a situation where we try and, I know I say this all the time, like we kind of want to make it, if we can't make it informative, we want to at least make it entertaining, right? And I think the thing that, over the last 5 years, people are trying to inject more interest, inject more pace into those things, which is great. But the amount of conferences I've been sitting at in the crowd waiting to kind of go on and talk, and the guy before or the girl before has got like a billion like words on every slide, and you can just see the energy being sapped out of the room. So I think it's really hard because there's so many good speakers out there that probably just aren't getting a chance of getting visibility because they're maybe not a name in the industry, or as we're seeing actually with the sort of imbalance from a gender perspective, maybe not right in the limelight to really sort of be put in the positions to have a go. So, but I think again it comes back to like why are people putting on, why are there so many conferences now? Because there must be attendees. There must be some sort of benefits case.
Yeah. Somebody's paying for the sponsorship. Somebody thinks that it's got value, but actually, surely there are different ways of connecting with customers and community that aren't just let's have a conference where we'll have panels and some keynotes. There's a place for that, but it does feel like there's just a bit too much of the same thing, and maybe there's some that obviously have agendas, some that are obviously community based. But I guess what I'm kind of, my response this morning, or my gut feel is we just need something a bit different. And some conferences will be classic, will feel like they do. Well, I don't. Balance, maybe.
I sort of reacted really to, I guess, with what what we're seeing with the Fintech Week and with Innovate Finance to a certain degree, is you just don't want to feel like the agenda is being manipulated to serve the purpose of somebody else type thing. And I think the thing that the conference that I've probably enjoyed most actually last year was the Xero one, because actually like Xero actually laid on a very open agenda. There was a mix of talking to vendors, but it was everybody was galvanized around a purpose of being there. Like I said, there was no
that was a pretty rock and roll accounting party, like accountants.
I know, right? I know that's it's a strange one, but it just works because there was such a positive vibe around it. There was no like heavy-handed sales in terms of actually what people were there to do, and the guys put on a really entertaining spiel.
And I think it really does become then about, if you've got that dynamism at the front and you've got the people there as well, what can you do to create those conversations, that water cooler conversation? Because you always had the trade floor, which was more fun, and then you had the kind of some panels that were good and some panels that were less good, and then some amazing keynotes. There's something else in there, which is a smaller group of 50 to 100 people fostering conversation between them, giving them an excuse to be next to each other and network.
I think the panel format needs like a lot of work, doesn't it? Like this, the worst instances of that is basically like 3 people, 4 people sat in a row. One gets asked the question, next one gets asked the question, and it's like doing 4 interviews badly rather than doing a panel. And the other thing that really pisses me off is this whole fireside chat bullshit, because in that kind of common sense of like, none of these things are like fireside chats. To be honest, I don't know if it's like some Silicon Valley thing that was kind of brought out to be like a more informal thing. But just like start calling it's just an interview. Call it what it is, guys.
And then just be a little different and get to know the people, right? Because actually sometimes they've got great stories. Sometimes they've got something going on. So I mean, hopefully we'll see more. I don't think by any chance, any level are we experts in the subject, or are we saying we've got all the answers? But these are just some thoughts that kind of came to mind, like maybe try this stuff, maybe have a go at something a bit different. What will the conference look like in, I don't know, 2030?
I presume at some point when 2020 is going to stop calling it 2020 when it's 2021 or something, right? Ask a question to you guys, Pat. Like come and let us know. But it's going to be an interesting one to see what would that look like. There's other conferences like the. I went along to the. Me, you, and Jason have been to the European Digital Banking Conference, which actually focuses a lot more on kind of interaction, small groups of people, rather than that sort of faceless conference center. You have an element of interaction. You have much more sort of focused roundtables. You get an element of sharing and caring of a community. And I think that's the crux of it. It has to be hinged around a sort of inclusive community for it to feel like actually it's there for the purpose of the community, not for the purpose of a company or a sponsor or a government in this instance.
Dave Birch for a long time has done the Consult Hyperion Unconference every year.
Yeah.
Love that. Shout out Dave Birch. Like really, really, always get some artists there who will show you something that you didn't expect and that really just kind of expand your horizons, and has lots of roundtables, has lots of just has time that's built in for networking. The coffee breaks are 35 to 40 minutes. It's like he knows what he's doing. He's a sharp cookie.
Last time I went to one of those, I ended up playing Monopoly late into the hours, like the new age Monopoly where you can do tap and pay when you're sort of with Dave, which was quite entertaining. So
another one was the Slush conference, obviously. Slush is a little bit different. It's obviously a tech conference that happens in Helsinki, I think it is, and it's every winter, so it's known for the snow, hence the slush. But just different lighting, different feel, different guests. The fringe conferences they do. OP Financial did a really cool thing. I think that sort of thing, let's just have some creativity.
Yeah, keep it fun, keep it entertaining, keep it informative. What can go wrong?
Absolutely. Well, that's about it for this week. We just wanted to have a quick chat about conferences, maybe even a little bit of a moan.
Indeed.
But I'm hoping that if you are going to Fintech Week, you'll come say hi and you'll have a great time and you'll network with the people, because that's what it's really about, isn't it?
It is.
It's about the people in the community doing amazing things, and we hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to submit your questions to fintechinsidernews.com. And keep an eye out to find out who's going to be our next special guest. I think we've got some good ones.
There's a big one, yeah.
Yeah, we got a biggie. What's this I've got to read here? At 4 p.m. tomorrow, we'll be releasing David's interview with the CEO of Commercial and Private Banking from RBS, Alison Rose.
Yeah, it was a super interesting one. She is kind of one of the most passionate CEOs I've really kind of come across. So it was fascinating to talk to her about her role within RBS, and also whether she sees herself as a female role model and what sort of burden that actually is. So really, really interesting. Check that out tomorrow.
Check it out on iTunes now. All right, that's it for this week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.